Let's see what we got going on. All right, so here it is. The Sand Cars Unlimited is done and ready to go. We got so much stuff buttoned up back here. I don't know where to start. So, yeah, obviously we were talking a lot about the exhaust last week. It's all done through this panel. The mounts are all done in here. Got a couple mounts right here, just some hose clamp mounts, just kind of stabilize it a little bit. Because this was just wiggling slightly after running it, but really excited with how this thing sounds. It sounds insane. It sounds like a lot more motor than an LS1 with a Magnuson on it, but super happy with that. Got the intake all buttoned up. You can see this big heat shield right here to get some of that heat from the headers from going back in the engine. So it's got this massive filter, and the filter has a stud on it right here. So we're able to do a little stabilizer bracket right there as well to keep that from flopping around. Added a couple top tabs here to keep the intercooler from moving around. So this right here is the intercooler for the supercharger. It's got a water pump down in here, cycles fluid through the intercooler for that. So it's a water to air setup. And that's obviously new. Here, it's got a big brand new CBR radiator. We also plumbed that in, did all the water lines on that. New power steering reservoir and power steering plumbing. There's another cooler right there, little small CBR guy right there, and that is for the diff, or I guess you would say the transaxle. So we actually had to run a fluid pump for the transaxle and a filter. That stuff's from Weddle, and then you basically plumb that into your fill point and I think it's the drain on the side. So it basically just circulates the fluid, and then the fluid, when it goes back in through the top port, dumps right on the ring gear. So all that fluid going through the cooler, that cool fluid dumps right on the ring gear, which helps these trannies last. So that's something we wanted to add in. And then opposite, we have the same exact cooler on this side. And this is just plumbed into engine oil. So we just wanted to, help cool everything, which isn't something you see too often on a lot of sand cars. There's not too many coolers. So this thing's more built around like a race car, which what I wanted to do. So yeah, engine oil cooler, transmission cooler, intercooler, radiator, and all of it's all brand new plumbing. And the fuel, besides the vent, is all brand new plumbing as well. And that's all Earl's crimp style fittings like I showed you on all the trucks before. It's got the Earl's fuel pressure regulator right there. That tank next to it is just a little overflow tank for the radiator. You can see we added these top bars here with the paneling just to kind of hide everything, because if you look from the side, you don't really see too much sticking out the top. So if anything were to happen, say this thing ends up on its lid, it's fairly protected without, instead of just having all this stuff kind of mounted, sticking out. Another, catch can right here for the vent. That's also plumbed with all the good stuff. So yeah, we put a Hale Terminator on this thing. So it's running the Terminator X engine management system. And this is the first one we've ran it on. And it works really good. I was able to actually take the little handheld screen and program everything into it to tell it what motor this thing had. And I was actually able to get it to fire up on my own. So that's the first time I've ever done that. So that's pretty cool. Didn't have to have the tuner come out here and plug in and dial it all in to get it to fire up. So I was able to do that all on my own, which was nice. Added a bunch of skid plates on the back. We got an 1/8" one right here. Kind of wraps around the tail section. And then right here, got a big 3/16 one all the way to the trans and engine tube, basically. And before, this thing didn't have any skid plates on the front section of the trans, so we added one way up there too. You can see it up in there. And that one, we went a 1/4 inch on that one. So yeah, basically going more race car pre-runner with all the paneling and skid plates. This thing was pretty wide open before, being a sand car, but I don't like not having skid plates back there, so that's how we did all that. Paneling on the sides, got a big mesh cut out here to help get some of that hot air from the headers out. And obviously all, 8 fans up here blowing all that hot air down that helps get all that out of there. The wing up here, we actually made new side plates to the existing wing, and it actually acts as an air scoop, so it actually draw air from the roof panel. Roof panel's not on right now, but you can see that gap right there. That'll draw all this air and basically ram it through all these coolers to help make those work as efficiently as possible. It's got new axles, CVs, and boots. It's got 934s, but it's got a micro stub setup, which may or may not last that long with this new motor setup. So if and when the micro stubs break, we're probably going to go to like a big mid-board Pro-Am setup on the rear hubs, and then make new rear arms and maybe add a couple inches to the wheelbase just with the new back half setup. Overall, really happy with how this thing turned out. We pretty much cut the car off here and basically just started over. Added a bunch of wiring, of course. Come up here, it's got the Hale EFI digital dash display up there. We kept a couple of the old analog gauges for fuel level and boost pressure. It's got the gear indicator right there, so you know what gear you're in. It's got the seat heaters, and we added a second S-Pod down there for all the extra fans and pumps. So it's got water pump for the intercooler, the pump for the trans cooler fan, oil cooler fan, and intercooler fans are all ran off the S-Pod right there. And it had a bunch of holes up here from all the old gauges, so we just made this panel right here and just bolted it on just to kind of fill everything in, and it turned out pretty nice. So it's kind of nice little cockpit action going on now. That's pretty much it on this thing. You could tell from the video, it's kind of hard to tell how this thing sounds, but it sounds insane, and I'm super happy with my exhaust and headers. Let's see if we get it to fire up here without giving it any throttle. So yeah, that's how easy it fires up. So that Hale computer is fucking awesome. Next time you see this thing, we'll be doing some wheelies and glamis in it, so that'll be fun. But let's give you a couple more revs. So here on the tube chassis truck, the back half, the fuel cell area is the same as, let's say, like the gray truck here and the Tundra. The only thing different is we added this tube, which goes right here, which will tie in with where this tube will connect on the chassis there. So this is the only thing different is we added this tube. So this was already built, so we just had this extra one laser cut, and then I'm gonna prep right here so we could get that tube in place. So to prep this tube on the truck, rather than use a DA or something like that, and I want to get the same kind of look as we do when we do the lathe prep, I got this cool little tool from 525 with a belt from Jag 10, and it just hooks up to your air tool. It's a little mini belt sander basically, and you can prep your tube with it. All right, back on the tube chassis, we got the big X in from the top corner of the fuel cell tube area, whatever you want to call it, fuel cell cradle. We got this tube from the top corner down to the bottom corner over there. So that complete X, which basically starts out to where we can start laying in the rest of the tubes. This one comes into here. We'll get a bunch of these in, like we'll get the top one in next, and we'll get a bunch of tubes in here. And we got to pull some fixtures out of the way to get the rest in. But you can really see where it's starting to take shape. Obviously, there'll be another straight tube here with a bend. It'll land to there. And then there's a couple other kicker tubes that'll get added in here as well. But a lot of the tubes that go in the back won't be done with the fixtures in here because it's just, you know, there's a lot of different angles. There's another one from the back of this tube to here, and then from this corner up to the shock mount, which isn't established yet. We got to just fine tune that, the computer, and then we could cut out the shock mount. We could bench weld the shock mount and it'll just click right into the chassis. Yeah, these ones are a little tricky one to get in there. You know, it's a 8-foot long tube pretty much from up there to there. So, yeah, there it is. What's up, Evan? What do we got going on?
Sheet metal in the radiator in the back half of this thing. It's going pretty good. Just looking at the next panel we're going to have to do here around the shock mount. It's going to cover this guy up, the vented hole, so once we figure that out, we'll be working on that next.
Yeah. And up there we did a little extra panel to fill in that area because you just see like the cage tubes pretty much. So that's just basically just another, you know, beauty panel there just to kind of clean things up. Obviously the bottom we're gonna have to do a little notch for the plumbing on the trans cooler, but cool little panel, something a little different than what we usually do. Just trying to make this one look as clean as possible. Obviously you got the panels on the sides, you know, pretty much took what we did on the Tundra and did it on this truck. Obviously everything's just slightly different on the front half. The fuel cell is pretty much the same templates for both trucks. Back panels are in there. Yeah, next we're gonna do the billet radiator hold down. Yeah, moving right along. All right, small little progress on the white ZR2. You can see the frames all painted, no more raw frame in there. All the parts just got back from powder coat. So we got all the uniballs all pressed in. The parts, the billet parts are still at anodize. So once those come back, pretty much this whole front end can go together. And now that we got it all painted, we can start finalizing some other things, you know, brake lines, and get all the wiring back tucked up in there, and reroute some things if need be. But yeah, this one's super close. I'm really excited to get this one done and drive it. And just the owners can't wait to get it back either. He's super happy with it. So he's excited to get it back, and we're excited to get it wrapped up and get it out to him. Yeah, I'm a trailing arm. So something a little different you'll see on this truck is this color that we went with. So originally he was gonna run the wheels that he had on the truck, and I told him we had to go to a different lug pattern. We had to get new wheels. So he's like, well, let's get some Innovates. And he wanted bronze Innovates. So we had all the billet parts are done in this same like bronzish color. So basically if you put this out in the sun next to the wheels, they are so close to matching, like you can't even really tell. So basically just wanted to match all the billet to that. So it'll be cool, a little different look. Usually, you know, we run gold or raw or something like that, but you know, just something a little different. So excited to see all this all together. You can see the pivot bolt up there. This thing's running all RPI 12-point bolts as well. And then all the anti-seize and thread locker from Revlock Race Supplies. So we'll dig into that later on, but yeah, super cool look, something a little different for us. All right, so back on the Willys, you can see there's no more cab in there. We actually built the whole cage to where the cab cage and the cab could unbolt together because we wanted to be able to powder coat the chassis basically. So, and if the cab ever gets damaged, we could unbolt it and, you know, build a new cage and put a new cab on it. But we got the motor and trans and exhaust back in. We're gonna do a trans mount because we only have this mount in here right now, which is for the transfer case support over here. So we're gonna do a trans mount, but we're doing pretty much a big like structure underneath for a skid plate. And then we're gonna run the trans mount off the middle of the tubes because we're gonna do like a big X in the tubes underneath. So I'll have a trans mount off the center of that X. And then yeah, just getting a bunch of final welding done while the cab's off, and then this thing should be headed to powder coat, in a couple days. And then the owner just decided he didn't want to run the 4.8 liter engine anymore, which is basically what you find in like a little Chevy truck from the 99 to 06 or whatever. So we're having Maruzzi build a 5.3 for it, so a little extra power. So yeah, that'll be fun. And then we'll blow up the axles next and build new axles for it. So stay tuned on this one.